Hey everyone, today we're going to go over all the updates of the Godox V1 Pro. As this is an update to the Godox V1, I'm not going to go over every detail of this flash. Instead, I'll focus strictly on how it's different. If you're unfamiliar with the Godox V1, you can watch some of the previous videos I've made on it, which I've linked in the description below. But to summarize, the Godox V1 is a 76 watt second speedlight. It can control anything in the Godox X series, and it features a round head that has exceptionally smooth light fall off. This head has magnetic accessories such as a diffuser, snoot, bounce card, grid, barn door, and gel holders. It recycles a full power blast in 1.5 seconds, and it's capable of 480 full power flashes on a single battery. All of that is true of the Godox V1 Pro as well. So now let's talk about the improvements. First, thermal protection mode. The Godox V1 had great performance in terms of recycle speed, but one restriction is that it would enter thermal protection mode very quickly at high outputs. If you used 30 full power flashes really quickly on the Godox V1, thermal protection mode would kick in to protect the light from overheating, drastically slowing down the recycle speed. The Godox V1 Pro has an updated system that will not trigger thermal protection mode until 100 full power flashes. Now, I want to be clear that this does not mean that recycle speed stays 1.5 seconds until you get to 100 full power flashes. I ran a test where I fired full power flashes immediately after the light recycled, and it maintained 1.5 recycle speed through about 40 flashes. Once we got to 50, it dropped to about 2.5 seconds. That's not its peak speed, but it's far better than the 6-second recycle speed that you would experience in thermal protection mode on the Godox V1. As I got closer to 100 flashes, the V1 Pro took about 3 seconds to recycle, and at 105 flashes, the thermal protection mode kicked in. This is a huge jump in performance, and I think it'll really benefit wedding and event photographers who are heavily reliant on a speedlight on camera. Part of this improvement is the updated battery. It's a Godox VB30, and it's still the same size format that you would find on the original V1, but a key difference is the addition of a Type-C USB port directly on the battery. You can still charge via the battery charger too. I think this is a nice modernization because many of us already have a power bank in our bag to charge lav kits or other gear that is using Type-C. Just above the battery port, you'll notice a new switch for switching between manual and TTL. You can still hit mode underneath the display like on the V1, but given all the buttons have the same texture and size, it's not really a tactile experience. This new switch on the side is really nice for rapidly switching without having to bring your face out of the viewfinder. This next part hasn't really been promoted as an improvement, but I did test the color on this light and they fixed the green color cast that the V1 suffered. Across the entire power range, the highest tint that I got on the V1 Pro was plus 0.1 M, indicating a tiny amount of green, far more neutral than the Godox V1 used to be, around 0.3, 0.4 M. And I did see 0 on quite a few power levels as well, perfectly neutral. And just so everyone knows, the Godox V1 has also been updated with the same lenses, so if you're ordering one now, as long as the retailer actually has it, then it's not going to have that green tint issue anymore either. Next, they've added a port to connect to the PB960 battery. If you started flash photography recently, you've probably never heard of this, but back when we used to all use AA speed lights, some people would use a PB960 battery pack to reduce their recycle time and have a battery that can last all day rather than changing AA batteries every few hours. The Godox lithium-ion speedlights so far have not had a connection to the PB960 battery, so this is the first light to include it. If you decide to use that, you can expect about 900 full power flashes using that PB960. I don't know as I don't have it anymore, but I doubt there's any improvement to recycle speed because I think these are mostly limited by the protection that needs to be in place to keep things from overheating. I think that's why recycle speed is 1.5 seconds, not because it's limited by its power source. Finally, and quite possibly the most unique aspect of the Godox V1 Pro is the SU-1 flash. That's right, this flash has a flash. This tiny flash mounts directly onto the V1 Pro over the AF assist grid area. It's powered by the V1, so if you try to take it off, there's no way to actually use it. Once you mount it, a sub menu pops up on the home screen and you can control its power from 1/128 to full power in third stop increments. I think this is a really cool idea, as it allows you to bounce as a key light and still have on-axis fill flash, all with a single speed light. I do have some issues with it, but let me remind everyone that this is a pre-production model, so things like this may be ironed out by the time the actual production model comes out. First, it doesn't seem to do TTL. Even when I switch the V1 Pro to TTL, the SU-1 continues to fire at whatever manual setting that I put it on, and there's no option to actually switch the SU-1 to TTL from the sub menu. Second, while it's easy to control from the main menu, there's no control from the commander menu. This means that if you're using the V1 to control additional lights off camera and you're trying to use the SU-1, it's going to be a bit sluggish to control it. You got to press 2 buttons to navigate back to the home screen, enter the sub menu, change the power, get out of the sub menu, press another button to get back to the commander screen. It's like 8 button presses just to change the power of this little flash, which is arguably your least important flash. Now, I don't see space for it in the commander menu either, but the way it is right now, when somebody tries to do that, they're gonna find it quite cumbersome. Perhaps the thought is if you're using off-camera lights, then the V1 Pro, the main head of the V1 Pro, is already your fill flash and there's no need for additional fill flash right here. But inevitably somebody's gonna try it and they're gonna find it quite annoying in its current state. Now, with all these changes, and including the SU-1, this is going to be $329. That's about $70 more than the original V1, which isn't bad considering the thermal protection upgrades and the addition of this little flash, as long as this is going to benefit you a lot. I don't know how much cheaper it would be, but I would prefer to see a kit without this as well, maybe for a little bit cheaper, 30, 40 bucks, getting it closer to that Godox V1 price. Because some people are gonna be like, this is my fill flash, I don't need a fill flash for my fill flash, give me a kit without it. And with something like that available, I could see this being a very obvious upgrade, especially for, like I mentioned before, anybody who is heavily reliant on their speedlight. And that's simply because the improvements to the thermal protection system are so good. For the Sony shooters out there, yes, it does come by default with a metal shoe. My only criticism of this is that it seems we have the exact same system for changing power. And while I like the dial D-pad combo system because it's very easy to control a lot of features of this light, namely switching between full stop and 10th stop, but the reason I wish there was an adjustment is because this seems to be a weak point of it. Some people have reported this coming off, so I wish they took the opportunity to kind of beef this up a little bit. All right, that's all from me today. We got some other products to be going over soon, including their new touchscreen trigger, so make sure to stay subscribed and tune in for those videos. See you guys in the next one.